Kgosientsho Ramokgopa.
South Africa will need 1.5 trillion rand over the next 5 years to achieve its decarbonization commitments by 2050. The Energy and Electricity Minister believes this can be achieved, but only through consolidated efforts.
It will require all stakeholders to play a role. The financing fraternity is going to play a big part in our efforts to ensure that we achieve our goals of the just energy transition. Our own computation suggests that we'll need about 1.5 trillion rands for us to achieve the kind of ambition that we have set for ourselves. So we welcome the fact that for the fourth year running, Standard Bank has occasioned this conversation. So bringing into the fold, if you like, the fraternity to say how best can they support this net zero path. So it's important that in this conversation we don't leave anyone behind.
Talks have been going on around attracting private sector investments towards the just energy transition. The Standard Bank Group has committed to mobilize a cumulative amount of 250 billion rand in sustainable finance by the end of 2026.
Around energy transition is much more than just looking at where the opportunities are, but actually how you can fund that. So we as a bank have looked at not only funding it through project finance and traditional type of avenues, but also how do we set up a fund? How do we make sure we crowd in pension funds, institutional investors, to be able to address this massive need of capital that we don't only need in South Africa, but across the continent.
Power utility Eskom says it too has had to tailor its programs in line with the just energy transition target. The power utility also supplies energy to some countries on the continent. The utilities chairman believes the efforts will soon see the prices of electricity reduced.
There's this narrative that is out there that Eskom want to continue to do things the way they have always done it. No. We are actually embracing the competition that we're going into. We have to start to thinking seriously about affordability, which is really our next big challenge that we're driving within Eskom now, to drive down the cost of electricity.
The Presidential Climate Commission also took part in panel discussions at the Climate Summit, looking at balancing the pace of the transition in line with global trends, but with local communities in mind.
Our concern is around the social and the economic impact of this transition. So how do we make sure that workers and communities are not the ones that are bearing all the costs and taking all the risks? And also, how do we ensure that opportunities are fairly shared? So, can we make sure that in this transition we create more jobs than we lose? And can we make sure that those are decent jobs, they're in the right place, and that workers and communities are supported to transition from one sector to the other?
With the weather conditions becoming more adverse, the role players are in agreement that the efforts towards mitigating against climate change have become more important in protecting the economy and also in the saving of lives. The call to action continues on the sustainable efforts towards the just energy transition, while government is calling for more private sector role players to align their strategies with the country's efforts here. The target remains that of reaching zero carbon emissions by 2050. SABC News in Johannesburg.